Nourishment podcast. I am Paola and I'm so excited to be here with you today. This podcast is all about feeding your whole self, mind, body, and spirit. We explore how the spiritual practice we cultivate can truly impact all our well-being in ways that go far beyond the surface and how they can nurture the deepest parts of us in the most beautiful practical ways. And I'm not alone here. I'm waiting for my guest or co host. It's our first podcast, so I'm waiting for him. Hi.
We're here on Soul Nourishment, and I'm Justin Godalia Walls, and we're doing a podcast. I do. So, I am a wellness coach outside of Washington, D.C. I've been doing this for over 15 years, 17 years to be exact, and I help people organize their wellness programming. 90% of the time, it's helping them with their regular exercise, helping them treat conditions from osteoporosis to injury recovery to joint issues, you name it. Sometimes we have to help them work on their weight gain or their inability to initiate weight loss. And we put together meal planning or meal suggestion planning to help them make good, healthy decisions, which also includes teaching people how to help shop for the foods that they want to make. So that's what I do. Okay. So hey, we got some people listening on. So let me welcome everybody. Welcome everybody.
First live together talking about wellness, spirituality.
And so the podcast is called Soul Nourishment, and the podcast is for feeding your whole self. Okay, so your mind, body, and spirit, and we're going to explore how true well-being comes from nurturing your whole being. Okay, and this episode is called The Spiritual Side of Feeling Good. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to take a deep look at how nurturing your spirit impacts your daily experience feeling good. Okay? All right. So what we're going to look at first is we're going to talk about spirituality.
We start with what do we mean by spirituality when we talk about how we feel day to day, like going beyond dogma to personal connection, right? This is where we start.
How does connecting to something greater than ourselves impact our feelings of being peaceful and joyful, or our sense of peace and joy? So how does that play into it? And we're also going to see the difference between if this is a religious thing or if someone who isn't religious can tap into spiritual well-being, and that will help them feel good as a result. Okay. So let's jump right in. All right. So let's talk about this holistic connection. Okay. So yeah, Ellie, why don't you tell me what you think are good practices like gratitude or mindfulness that can help bridge the gap that goes between our spiritual feelings and our emotional feelings.
So I believe when you're talking about spirituality in day by day, right? uh, all these elements that you just said, it's already a spiritual practices that we do, right? Like when you have this certainty in the Creator, when you have a certainty that everything is for good, you do with more intention all these practices. Like you remember that you're not just a body, you're not just your mind, you have a soul, so you can go deeper, right? So even when you're like doing simple like day by day stuff like washing the dishes, how can you be present there and feel gratitude for the life you have right now? You know what I mean? So when you're in a rage or anger mode, like how can you just pause in that moment, and before you're acting or reacting, you just breathe and then connect with your breath before you do anything else, so you get some space for your mind or divine wisdom just come and act in a proactive way. You know what I mean?
The divine wisdom with which we're connecting is something that we bring down to help with how we're feeling at that moment. Like you said, something mundane, like the dishes. What's an example of some divine emanation that we could get that would help us do the dishes, for example? There's a whole sink full of dishes, and I am tired.
Yeah. Do you remember one time I was sharing with you a meme of was like a mushroom, like it's a cartoon mushroom, like praying, like meditating, creator, give me some divine inspiration, and then it say, go, like, do your dishes, like do laundry, and then he start getting upset, like, do, like, so if you're not organized your life outside of you, like all these elements outside of you is just a reflection of who you are. So if you take this time, if you're so unorganized with your thoughts, or you're so upset that you don't figure it out how your emotion is going on in there that moment, when you start doing it, of course you're not going to have the desire to do it, right? You have just like, okay, I got to do this, I have to do, let's move this energy, let's flow this energy, and you start doing things like that, like as we said, the dishes, for example. um, you clean up this heavy energy, you organize your thoughts while you're doing that. And then if you, of course, how you're doing that, if you're just taking a podcast, or like listen to other people talking all the time, you don't silence, don't get like this quiet moment, it's not going to help. You need to be quiet, you have to observe your thoughts and just see that you're not, your thoughts are just coming and going, and then you create this space to get this divine inspiration or energy. And it's not, it's not in your head, actually, it's like in your heart. I believe that the heart is the most effective connection with the with your intuition, with your divine insights, with your connection with the creator. And that it's, of course, if you're doing meditation, if you're working out, if you're running, if you're doing all these things in presence, of course you're also going to get insights if you have the intention. It's all about the intention. And to get an intention, I believe you need to practice this kind of way of thought. It's like taking weightlifting. Every day you have to try a little bit more.
True, we don't have to every day, but gradually. Yeah, I agree. So, with these everyday moments, so are you suggesting that you find more meaning in these mundane moments that make you'll find positive feelings in those moments that will make those feelings more sustainable, meaning you can take those moments and go, this, I can feel good about my life because I have a home and I have dishes and the dishes will be clean when I'm done with it. Are those things that you can actually bring meaning to those experiences?
There's a phrase, probably you know better than I know. Viktor Frankl, the psychologist, that was, he has a phrase that you have to bring a purpose where you're struggling, where you are, right? Like for what? What do you remember the sentence?
It's I don't remember it offhand. No, but there is an idea for
A
sure
meaning.
that yeah, finding just finding meaning in kind of the everyday things. For example, Nachmanides, the Ramban, he says when he says in the parsha of Kedoshim to you, says that you should be holy, right? So he says on the parsha there that bringing holiness to the everyday is what we're talking about. Meaning, there's one thing to stay away from the things that everyone says, just stay away from that. But to take your everyday things, the things that you are normally engaged in, and to infuse them with holiness, that's really what makes a difference. It's not staying away from things. It's not that idea that you take your everyday experiences and infuse them with holiness. So, for example, if we go away from the dishes, right? But you recognize that you can, when you interact with other people, smiling at them and saying something positive to them and uplifting for them is a way in which you bring sanctity to those experiences. Or let's go back to the dishes again. If you're there with somebody else and you want the help and you can ask for it, and I say, I could really use help with the dishes. Figure it out. Okay, I'll wash with a sponge and you dry with a towel, or don't do that. Just put it in the dishwasher. I'll wash the dish and put it in the dishwasher. Yeah, there were days when I remember when people didn't have dishwashers.
Actually, here in Brazil, it's not everyone like dishwasher is not something that everyone has the privilege to get, right? I don't have a dishwasher in Brazil. I used to have it when I lived in America, but here I don't have it. But like you have time. That's why I was bringing this up about the idea of the dishes. But something that was coming to my mind is that it's actually something. Well, I didn't present saying who I am. Like I'm a health coach and I'm also teach yoga. I'm a yoga instructor with a somatic embodied therapies, and I combine all this together with Judaism, Kabbalah, all the stuff together. So I talk more about Kabbalah than Hinduism in my yoga classes. And something that I will share with my students is that when you're not eating clean, when you eat a lot of sugar, how do you call industrializados? I forgot the word. Processed foods. Um, it's really hard to get. It's more difficult to get in this state of being present. You know, you it's like listen to somebody if you're eating a lot of stuff and just listen person, oh, you have to be thankful, gratitude about the things you have, and talking about all these things, it doesn't connect in the same way. So everything is integrated and related you know
Which is connecting ourselves into purifying ourselves, our thoughts, like you were saying, and so that the purification of the mind, and then positive thoughts. So here's where we tie it all together, and we want to explore this in future episodes as well. So eating well, okay, as you just said, that's one of the ways that we do that, and we need to sort of, if we talk about bringing down the divine forces, is to give ourselves power to cultivate positive thoughts. So you nourish your spirit, okay, when you have that connectivity, like we're talking about, and you have a purpose, and you have this inner sense of peace. So let's talk about for a second the nourishing foods. So what we're basically saying is that a nourished and nurtured spirit is going to help us deepen our respect for the body as a spiritual vessel. So, how does that help us translate into more conscious choices about how we're going to purify ourselves? How do we take that, the foods, and turn that into the purification of our thoughts?
So, when you talk about the right food, like foods that really nourish your body and your soul, we're talking about whole foods, right? Real food. So,
Not the grocery store.
um, just the vegetables, like it's nice to the one I send you the May seasonal foods, right? Like the berries and stuff. So just know what is the season, like foods that are in the season. So it's cheaper, it has more vitality, has more energy in the food. Everything that you eat that is real, like real food, has vitality. In our body, to feel connected, to feel more grounded and connected and have this beautiful skin and your shine, and also connecting with the divine, you need vitality, right? This life force connecting with the vitality. So you find this in real food. So Berries, fruits. I love berries, so that's why I'm talking about berries now. Um, I love it. So all these things helps you, like help you to have a better digestion. And remember, we have the nerve, the vague nerve that connects from your brain through your intestines, your gut. So when you have a better digestion, of course you're going to have a better thoughts. You have a good microbiome, right? You have a good population of how do you call that in English? I'm so sorry. I'm like trying to pick.
Sometimes if you say it in Portuguese, I know what you're saying.
Guys, it's my first podcast in a different language, so I'm just trying to catch up the words I have. But anyhow, you have a better gut, more a healthier gut. So naturally, you're gonna have a better thoughts. This is for sure, and it takes time. So one time I was talking about also the probiotics, right? So if you have a bad bacteria in your gut, you're gonna, of course, crave even more dense food or bad thoughts. This is just about, we are talking about what you're eating. So if you have a good fiber amount every day, a good source of carbs, protein, and clean food, real food, like they're doing here in Brazil, the old fashioned. You're not buying everything ready. You're gonna cook your rice, you're gonna cook your veggies. You're not gonna kill your veggies and leave there in the oven for an hour. Just like make sure that you're not cooking too much, so then you lose and miss all the nutritional part of the food. Uh, and also, what helps you to connect with the other part of the food that we don't see, but it's also kind of food, is what you're watching, what you're seeing in the screens, what are accounts that you're following on social media, what you're watching in TV, all these things that you're doing every day, of course, is going to impact in your mind the things that you think. So if you're also around people that are all the time is talking about the catastrophes that are happening in the world and all this war and fight, of course it's going to be more difficult for you to have positive thoughts because you're going to lose your hope. You're going to say, oh, the world is ending and everybody's losing. I'm not talking about to be um how do you say that?
Closed off from the news.
Yeah, yeah, not close off. You don't want to know what's happening, you're just like in your bubble. But there are so many ways to read news. You can read news, you don't have to watch it. You know what I mean? It's so different when you read the headlines and you know what's going on, and then you're watching all these heavy things that are happening, and in social media, all these crazy videos, or people are sharing things in WhatsApp. Here in Brazil, we use a lot of WhatsApp, but sharing the groups, all this heavy kind of information. I don't think it's helpful. What do you think about this?
I mean, actually, this is a good segue to talking about cultivating the positive thoughts, and because this really helps to reinforce the resilience that you have. So this that sort of divine influences that you'll get will help to strengthen up yourself. It sort of like validates your feelings, sort of like your core values, and it helps to change your perspective. There's a difference between like you talk about the scrolling through the news versus looking for the news. And I realized that one of the things that I do that probably changes the way in which I experience information is I look for stories. I don't wait to be entertained by them, so they don't become sensationalized in order to elicit a response from me. I'm interested, and I am very I think it's important to be aware of what's going on. So there's a difference in being intentional about finding stories. It also means you are less manipulated by the stories like in social media. They want you to generate that sense of urgency and that sense of I need to keep reading this or I need to feel a certain way about it. I once remarked years ago when I was in college. I actually this applies even more today. When they write news stories, they're supposed to be reporting facts and not making you feel a certain way or draw a certain conclusion. And I pointed out to somebody, they said, well, how would they do that? I said, look at the adjectives that they use to describe certain situations. How they're eliciting something that's not a fact, imagine going to court and telling a judge, you know, they were highly agitated when they did that. Well, judge will say, well, that's speculative. How do you know they're highly agitated? Did they say that? Like a witness couldn't say that on a stand. So it's not a fact. You're emoting that into the experience. Why do I want you to have that experience? Because I'm trying to elicit a response from you that I want. So, like you said, it's really important to make sure that people are aware of what it is that they're fostering. That you want to foster a mindset that's sort of rooted in hope and gratitude and acceptance. And you don't want to constantly feel that you can only belong to a group if you think a certain way. People should feel comfortable having a free exchange of ideas. That's really what free societies should be about, free thinking societies. Um, it should not, you shouldn't feel like you can't have an opinion. You should be able to debate the opinion. So, but you do need to kind of have that sense of security. It makes it difficult when you're not secure about it. I had a client come in one time where she told me she needed to lose weight. So, okay, I said, well, what, I asked, what makes you decide that you need to lose weight? Oh, well, my boyfriend left me for another girl and they're having a baby together. My parents hated me and I hate my body. To which I basically said, you don't need wellness training for that. You need therapy. You need to work on how you feel about yourself, how secure you are in yourself, and that you're not going to be able to get a hold on your reality, because wellness training requires you, as you well know, to make sure you
Hmm.
can get a grip on your life and organize it to have some control. If you're all over the place and don't have control over it, the thoughts are going to be the same way. You have to sort of mirror your actions with what result you want. Um, so that's really what how I would echo what it is that you're saying as well.
That's why this in the integration, right? This integration of nutrition is so important because it's not. This is when I started working as a health coach. I understood that was not about the food. Was about the primary food, which is what we are consuming. It's the circle of life. It's like a pizza. So if you have one of the slices of this pizza that are not going good, going bad, it's going to affect all the slices, right? So how it's going with your self-care, relationship, spirituality, finances, education, creativity. Also, the how are you working with your self-love? What is self-love for you? Because most of the time you're just seeking for love. It doesn't matter what type of, like, in friendship, family, or like a romantic relationship, but you're looking always like that somebody is going to save us or bring us this love, like bring me the love. No, you awakened your love first, the self love, your oxygen mask. You take care of you. You learn how to love yourself with the flaws you have, with all the positive aspects you have, so then you can mirror something. And then when you learn this, it really, really helps you to balance the way you eat. This is what I believe, because most of the time when you're eating a lot, it's because you feel this emptiness, like some, avoiding some inside of you, and you're just trying to fulfill with food. Some people it's with food, other people are with alcohol or drugs or workout. Sometimes they work out a lot, and like 3 hours of a workout in a day, I don't think it's is healthy. You know what I mean? So and then it's when I started working with also a little bit with some aspects of Judaism, Kabbalah, spirituality, and yoga. It's not just about the body, it's this integration of body, mind, and soul. Find the somatic therapy, some ways to release anger, to release all these heavy emotions, because after a practice that you do with the body, that you go almost to the catharsis, like, releasing all the anger you understand that you're not that. You have a clear, like, a wide way to see things, and then you see that it was not that bad. But if you're just thinking that to lose weight you just have to change the way you eat, Or now with all this, I don't know how you say that, you call injections, this Ozempic, all
Yep.
Manjaro, all this stuff, I maybe there is more accessible than here. I don't know the price, but people are just relying on this type of things, and they're not working in their mind and their emotions. They're just taking these. Okay, in 1 week I lost, I don't know, 10 pounds, and then it's all this mess. And then people are getting sick also in the mind, and these affect relationships, work, and I don't know if I'm going beyond the subject, but I think everything is integrated.
Think that you're making an excellent point, and I'll just sort of bring it all together here so we can wrap up today's podcast. We'll have a lot to talk about going forward. But really, the truth is that people will say, I will just be happy if, and then we can say, with terms of the Ozempic, if I just lose those 10, 20. I have people walk in who tell me, like, I just have to lose 20 pounds. And so I said, okay, let's go over your current stats. How tall are you? Well, 5'2". And how much do you weigh? 270 pounds. Well, losing 20 pounds isn't going to solve some of the health problems you may have. Now, maybe the numbers are okay, so you're eating well, but you know, being that heavy at that size, you're going to have joint problems, ankle, knees, hips, and not being ambulatory or being ambulatory allows you to be more independent. Not being ambulatory makes you dependent, and those are not good feelings. Then you create a cycle of where you become dependent on people, that you're waiting for somebody to constantly, as you pointed out, rescue you from those feelings. It becomes impossible because you don't know how to regulate it. So I think, to wrap up today's discussion, I think we're going to try to explore in future podcasts how this spiritual perspective will help us navigate those times when we don't feel good, when what we're doing in life is not contributing to our overall joy and our expansion of joy, our feeling like we want to do this. Like you don't want to feel like, all the things we were talking about today. You don't want to feel that, I have to eat berries. I have to do. I have to. It should be, the idea should be to help create a nourishing environment, a nurturing environment for growth. So why don't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead and
sorry.
wrap. No, no, go say. Go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, it's like yeah, how can you embrace the pain, stay in your desert, you're right, like you're there, and how can you embrace this? How can you accept who you are, even in your flaws, your shadows, the things you have, not just avoiding them, but really embrace them. And where is the doorway? Because we have to believe, we have to talk about the bio individually, right? Like individuality. So people, like for each one, they have a different doorway to go in all these other aspects of the circle of life, like of the self-care. So for example, my students, the doorway for them, it's like practicing yoga, but yoga is just the beginning. And then after that, probably your students, like your clients, are like working out. There's the doorway, you feel better, and then you start from there and going beyond that.
100%. So this was today's topic of the spiritual side of feeling good. So we talked about all the good things that can happen and sort of the core values of having these feelings. And we will continue with the Soul Nourishment podcast, with understanding how nourishing your soul can be a powerful pathway to supporting purification of the body, and through conscious eating, you cultivate a positive mindset. So we're going to talk about that and develop that even further. Thank you very much for having me today, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Go ahead and close us out with a goodbye message.
Thank you, everyone here that are participating in this, talking about for a long time. And we're gonna continue with this topic about nourishing our soul, how to explore what really, like, truly means to live in alignment with our deepest truth, this connection with the self body, spirituality, mind, body, soul. And I will see you in the next podcast, in the next episode. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.